from the depth of my heart, I hope you do the same.
Yes, it's just that I don't have a Bible with me next to me, but I do swear that I will speak the truth and nothing else but the truth. And I will speak honesty at the best of my ability.
Thank you. So please give us a brief down of your history with churches. How did you grow up? Where are you based? Your understanding of Christianity before you went into cults and Satanism.
It's so funny enough on how I grew up. I grew up with my late grandmother. When my parents were in Venda, I was raised in Sishiro. My late grandmother, she was a mamsebelete. She was a prophetess in a church that was called St. John Church. So I grew up from that background where a lot of people, they will flock to a house to come and collect bottles of water, which were meant to heal them. And I will witness people coming to her with chickens. And she will kill these chickens and they will take a bath with water mixed with chicken and some muti, or what they call siwasho, some ingredients, spiritual products. So that is how I grew up. I grew up in a Christian family because my father is a pastor. So I grew up from that setting, and also I had an encounter with spiritualism practiced by my grandmother at that time. The reason why I differentiate the two as Christian and spiritualism, it is because of, in my father's side, I had to go to church, I had to use the Bible to pray. But what I saw through the practice of my grandmother was something else. Even if they used the practice, showed that it is not just Christianity, but it is spiritualism, because they had to speak with angels, they had to speak with demons that were troubling people. So growing up from that environment at a very young age, I was very inquisitive. I wanted to know what is happening here. And I remember one day I narrated the story of what I have experienced when one lady came to my grandmother for a spiritual bath, because of she believed that things were not going all right in her life. So she came for a spiritual bath, and I witnessed the whole process. Where my grandfather took the chicken, slaughtered it, made some prayer with some candles there. Then I was taken out of the bathroom, and the woman, she was there bathing, talking, and I was by the door during that time. You know, as an author, or if you have a gift of writing, your memory is sharp. You see things as they were, and you can remember them as they were. So when I wrote my book, the first book called Church Mafia, I started from a point where I experienced those practices where people, they will talk as they are bathing. Talking, it is like they speak that whatever their wishes, they speak their wishes out. So it is not prayer, because prayer, it is not speaking your wish out. Prayer is communicating with God. But the moment you start to speak wishes out, it's more of incantation. You are repeating things. You are sending words into the universe. And by repeating those things, you want to see the manifestation of those energy in those words. So this person was taking a bath in a room that had water. That's another energy, or it's another energy that we see. And also a candle that was on. It's fire. We see another element there. And as she was busy talking, in the midst of those two elements, you should understand that spiritualism or witchcraft, they use elements for them to have more power. So this person was doing this in a church setting, because she came to a prophetess so that a prophetess can do some work upon her for her to experience breakthrough. But when I grew up and I joined the occult, I started to realize that a lot of churches are using the very same elements that are used to manipulate, to control, have been used in the church. So I grew up, and when I narrated this to my mother decided and said, we are taking our child to come and grow in a good and a Christian environment. That was the time they took me away from my grandmother, and I stayed with them. And staying with them, I had to attend all night prayers. Staying with them, I had to learn how to pray. So the moment I was full-time with my parents, I started going to the Sunday school. I started attending a youth. As I grew up in a Christian family, I believe that whatever that you ask of God, through prayer, God will answer you. So at the age of 5, I remember the age of 5, I had an open vision where I saw a figure of a person pouring something like oil on my head. And when I explained that to my father, he said that is a sign to show that you are called. Now, they said if there is a calling upon your life, the calling will grow and everybody will witness the calling upon your life. And times when I was a teenager, I was not just like any other teenager. But there was a point in time where I had to make up my mind, and I became committed in my Christian journey with God. I accepted Jesus, not because my father was a pastor, but because I had this hunger and this zeal for the Lord. I raised my hand on a Sunday service as my father was preaching, and I went in front. I accepted Christ. From that day onward, I knew that I was a new person. Now, as time went, the calling started to manifest. I started to love preaching. I started to love reading the Word of God. And I started to have this joy of the Lord when I share about the goodness of the Lord. I went to, it was Pretoria Tech by then. I registered for human resource. I went there and I studied. Along the way, I felt, let me move out of this environment, look for a Bible college. I dropped out the following year. I did not go back to a technical in Pretoria. Now I went to the Bible college in Soshanguve, and that is where I studied a 3-year diploma. Now I was taught to become a community leader. As a pastor in the Bible college, they teach you how to become a community leader. They teach you how to preach. So I was trained as a professional pastor, not a fly-by-night. I stayed at the Bible college for 3 years. I graduated and I was ordained.
So you have that education and you've got the spirituality, right? The spirituality
Yes.
and the understanding. Now,
Yes.
fast forward. When did you decide to open a church?
Right. Immediately, I think it was on my 3rd year. On my 3rd year, it's just that I can't remember the date exactly, and I don't want to quote the date.
Yeah.
Yes. So when I was doing my 3rd year, I remember that was the first time I wrote my book. I wrote a book titled Taking Over as I was doing my 3rd year, and I felt this zeal of preaching. And I was so up to any challenge, because by that time we will move with crusades and tents. So I went to Pretoria in the CBD. I looked for a hall in the CBD, and I found a hall at Corner Church and Nelson Mandela. It was a school called Tanza by then. That's where our first church was. Now, when I started that church, I thought that people who come from the same place, township with me at home, they will be our members here. But to my surprise, I realized that when you are called, God will have to raise people who can identify themselves with the gift of God upon your life. So that is when I started the church. and the church was started on good foundation, good intentions. But the problem was that the church was not growing the way that I thought, the way that I wanted it to grow. The speed, it was not there of growth.
So how many people were in the church at the time?
I can't remember the exact number, but I think we were more than 100 plus, because we were attending in the afternoon. So these people, they will go to their churches in the morning, then in the afternoon they will come to our service. And they were not members yet. We talk about people who just walk in for a service. So the reason why I was saying that the church was not growing is the mentality I had. I thought that through preaching, the hall will be full. So I thought that through preaching and teaching the word of God, I will be able to see success at an early age of my life.
How old were you when you started the church?
Around 21, 22. 21,
what
22.
was the name of the church?
It was El Shaddai Tabernacle Center.
Repeat.
El Shaddai Tabernacle Center. Okay. El Shaddai Tabernacle Center.
Okay, so you realize that
but let me make this disclaimer. There are other churches that are using this name. So this is not a church that is associated with other churches that has similar names.
Okay. So you realize that the church is not growing with a congregation of about plus minus 100, 150 people, take or give, right?
Yes.
And then what was your next step? Because this church is not growing. You are preaching the word of God, and yet you're not fulfilled. What was that thing that said, okay, let me go find a different source of power to increase my congregation? Where did that idea come from?
Remember, when a pastor says, I have reached a point where I make a conclusion that the church is not growing, you make that decision after you have tried everything. You have tried evangelism, you have tried doing crusades, you have tried revivals, you have tried to invite popular speakers. Because sometimes we think that by inviting somebody who is popular, somebody who is famous, it will automatically make your church grow. So I did all those things, but after the event, I would still remain with few people. And there were other members of the church who came and said, you know what, Muruti, we feel that our time is up fellowshipping with you. We have to move out. Now, that thing broke my heart because I was connected with these people. I believe that my vision, my future is linked with these people. So once they come and say, Pastor, we think that our time is up in serving the Lord under your leadership, it broke my heart. And that is where I started to think and say, let me associate myself with those who are already successful. Successful in a sense that they are driving big cars. Successful in a sense that when they host their own crusade or services, they are followed by a huge number of people. Success in a sense that they had money. So I said, I cannot die in the wilderness alone. Let me be close to these people. So that is when I started to associate myself with those people who called themselves prophets.
So you're taught Christianity. Who taught you Satanism? So the things that you were able to practice now in the church to sort of lure people in, who indoctrinated you into that? Because now you're associated with these powerful people by perception. Now, yes. Where did you go exactly? Like, who did you go to and say, this is my struggle, this is what I want from your presence? Who did you go to?
I went to those who who portrayed the life that I was longing for. I saw them living my life and I was close to them. Then as I was close to them, I disclosed and said, I need to be like you. I need this power. We used to call it impartation, where you believe that somebody with their own hand, they can lay their hands on you and you will automatically have a particular spiritual gift. So I spoke to them. And when I spoke to them, they told me that what you are looking for, you cannot find it here. We have to take you to Nigeria for you to be initiated. They told me that after, remember, these people, they don't just open up. You have to build a relationship with them. And by building a relationship, you have to be close to them. And you have to show loyalty to them before they can open up their other side of life.
What type of loyalty is that?
When I talk about loyalty, it's in a sense that when they come for a church service or in a crusade, you organize women in the church for them to sleep with them. You organize, you become a middleman for them. You host them for a spiritual crusade, and while you have organized some women, singing women in the church, so that they can have a good time with them. So those are some of the ways to show that you are loyal to them by fulfilling their needs.
So you are a pastor in your own church, linked with other pastors in big churches who have this glamorous big lifestyle, right?
Correct.
With your faith, you go out and solicitate women for these pastors who are already established with big congregations, right?
Correct.
In your conscience, you don't remember the innocence of those children and young women in the church that you're going to prostitute to this big pastors.
What happens is that once you associate yourself with these people who have this, who are immoral, the way that you see things is no longer the way that it used to be. You become immoral also with you. So for you to do something that is wrong, you don't see it as being wrong. You just see it as normal because you are in a circle of people who are practicing that. Because before you can do that, they can organize it for you. They show you this lifestyle so that you can see that they are not just only pastors, but they've got this bad lifestyle that surrounds them. So after they have shown you what they do, now it is your turn to do it for them.
So they initiate you.
Yes, ma'am.
Because I'm trying to really understand so that we get to the bottom of things, right?
Yes, sorry.
Did they now give you a specific age group of, okay, we want 16-year-old, 19-year-old, 20-year-olds? Is there a specific body type is that they want? How do they say, I want that specific girl? How does that conversation happen? Like, because they show you what they want, right? So when they ask of you to go collect these girls, what is the conversation? Because everybody has their own fetishes and they have their own body type, and what do they say to you that will make you understand what type of girl they will want?
In my experience, they don't describe. They don't sit down and give you a description of the kind of a girl that they look for. They target women who avail themselves to them. When a guest speaker is invited in a particular place, you find that there are women who shows interest to that particular person. So that is how they were able to take advantage from those particular people, whether it's young ladies, whether it's older ladies. So that's how the ball could roll.
Okay.